What makes a legend different from everyone else? Is it their ability to take over the game during the biggest moments? How they've changed the way the game is played? Or is it something in their DNA that few others possess? Honestly, I don't know. But what I do know is that these guys don't come around very often. While players such as LeBron, MJ, and Magic have defined the NBA at various points throughout its existence, there are certain players who have arguably made equally as great of impacts that are often overlooked. Take, for example, Steph Curry, who is often doubted due to his lack of insane athleticism that a guy like Michael Jordan showed off on a nightly basis. No, these guys may not appear to have a lot in common on the court, but despite their differences athletically, Michael Jordan and Steph Curry may actually have more in common than you may think. In fact, I bet I can convince you that Steph and MJ walked almost parallel paths in the NBA. Let's take a look. In order to see how an undersized three-point sniper and Air Jordan himself are related, we have to take a look back at how the game was affected by their arrival. Back in 1984, during MJ's rookie season, the Jumpman was just getting started with his flashy dunks, and the league hadn't quite caught on yet. The NBA was built on old-school basketball, emphasizing high percentage shots and discipline on the defensive end. The three-point shot had recently been introduced, so that wasn't a big factor for teams back then. In the ensuing years following Jordan's arrival, the league slowly started to catch on as the number of slam dunks increased exponentially across the NBA. By the early 1990s, players were dunking more than ever, which led to new waves of players being dubbed as Baby Jordans, primarily due to their ability to throw down high-flying dunks like MJ. Not only did he create an opportunity for guys who could jump out of the gym and throw it down, but he influenced how the league utilized the slam dunk moving forward. On top of all that comes the quote-unquote Jordan rules. Now, I'm sure many of you who have seen the Last Dance documentary are well aware of how these rules came about, but for those who don't know, I'll give you a short explanation. Back in the late 1980s, the Detroit Pistons were the team to beat in the NBA. Led by Hall of Fame guard Isaiah Thomas and physical forwards Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn, and Dennis Rodman, the Bad Boys weren't afraid to go toe-to-toe with the league's best. Their physical style of play earned them the nickname the Bad Boys, and they didn't mess around once they got on the court. With the rise of MJ's Bulls during the same time period, the Pistons saw a threat to their title hopes and decided that they had to focus on stopping one guy, MJ himself. During their playoff matchups in the late 1980s, the Pistons had a set rules called the Jordan Rules, where they would physically punish Michael for leaving his feet and elevating above the rim. The Pistons knew that once he was in the air, they were helpless. The Air Jordan was unstoppable above the rim. Their goal was to beat him up so badly that he wouldn't be able to play as effectively, and it worked. Jordan and the Bulls lost over and over again to the Pistons before finally getting over the hump in 1991, but that's a different story in and of itself. The fact is, Jordan had such an impact on the game that teams literally designed new rules to stop him. If that doesn't say enough, then I don't know what will. Likewise with Steph himself, the league changed once he arrived. While teams haven't made specific rules to stop him, they have learned to throw multiple defenders on him from 30 feet out. Prior to Steph's arrival, that would have been insane to do. Nowadays, it is seen on a nightly basis. Back during Steph's first few seasons, the league hardly prioritized shooting the three ball. Teams focused on close shots that were high percentage, and three-point shots were taken in moderation. As the league began to witness Steph's insane three-point shooting, they started to catch on. They noticed that the Warriors were scoring more points than most teams with greater efficiency, and teams began to follow their blueprint. Players across the league began to focus on improving their three-point shot to evolve with a new three-point explosion league-wide. And teams phased out old-school centers for small ball players who could shoot the three. The bottom line was, the more players who could shoot on the court at once, the better. Steph's unique style of play pushed the league into a new era where three-pointers are now more a part of the game than ever. It is crazy how one player can change the way the game is played, but that's exactly what Steph and Michael both did. Speaking of changing the game, both Mike and Steph changed the record books as well. During the 1995-96 season, MJ's Bulls set the all-time record for most wins in a single season with 72. 20 years later, the Warriors topped that record with 73 wins as Steph led the way en route to his second MVP award. Oh, and by the way, it was unanimous too. While these numbers may not mean a lot on paper, it certainly means something that both Steph and MJ were at the helm of two historically all-time great teams in two different eras. Simply put, these two guys are winners, and they've done it at the absolute highest level. Speaking of winning, both of these guys have had some pretty good success on the brightest stage as well. Starting with MJ. He led the Bulls to the playoffs during his early years in the league, but fell short to old-school dynasties such as the Celtics and Pistons before breaking through during the 1990-91 season. After that, it was all MJ, as the Bulls won 6 of the next 8 NBA championships, with MJ's brief retirement being a big reason why the Bulls had a 2-year absence. Likewise, Steph's first few seasons resulted in a little success before the Warriors finally returned to the playoffs in 2013 and bowed out in the second round to the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs, like the 1980s Pistons and Celtics, were an old-school dynasty, standing in the way of the Warriors' ascension. In order to get over the hump, the Warriors had to beat them, and after another playoff exit at the hands of the Clippers during the 2014 playoff season, they did exactly that the next season. While they would go on to represent the Western Conference in the finals for the next 5 seasons, the Steph-led Warriors roster finally succumbed to injuries and broke down. However, like Jordan's Bulls of the late 1990s, the Warriors are looking to retool and make another run at the title. Could it result in another championship? That remains to be seen. Both MJ and Curry had to overcome early adversity on the court, as each player had challenges making the roster of their high school teams. Two of the most influential players of all time weren't even shoo-ins on their high school teams. As many people now know, Michael was cut from his high school varsity team as a sophomore, which fueled him to come back the next year and prove everyone wrong. Obviously, everyone knows what happened from there, as MJ would go on to earn a scholarship at UNC before being selected 3rd overall by the Bulls in the 1984 draft. But yes, the GOAT still had some hurdles growing up, and even he wasn't good enough to overcome some of them during those days. Meanwhile, Steph endured a similar path during his high school playing days, except instead of being cut, it was Steph who was too intimidated to try out for the varsity team during his freshman year of high school. Yes, the 2-time league MVP was too scared to play with the big boys as a freshman, which are the same players I'm sure he could beat with his eyes closed today. The bottom line is both of these players had hurdles that they had to overcome during their high school days. Lastly, both Steph and MJ became an inspiration for the next generation of players and kids. As mentioned previously, MJ inspired an era of baby Jordans, including guys like Vince Carter, Kobe Bryant, and Harold Miner. Who is Harold Miner? Look him up. These guys were able to utilize their insane athletic skills and follow a path that MJ blazed for them. More importantly, Michael became a global icon for the sport of basketball, becoming the face of the NBA on an international level. Kids from all over the globe stuck out their tongues to be like Mike and rocked Air Jordans to feel like him too. Similarly, Steph has inspired a whole generation of kids with his style of play. Guys such as Trae Young and Damian Lillard probably wouldn't be hoisting up 30-foot shots on the regular if it weren't for Steph. In fact, a guy like Trae Young might not have even been in the league had it not been for what Steph has done for the game. Even further, kids are now hoisting up 3-point bombs and pursuing their dreams, knowing that they have a chance at being the next skinny, undersized guard to make it to the league like Steph did over a decade ago. Like it or not, Stephen Curry made his mark on the game and deserves to be mentioned in the same sentences as Michael Jordan. While he's still a few championships away from entering the GOAT conversation, he has certainly earned his place as one of the most influential players of all time. Even for Steph today, it's probably a dream to be mentioned in the same breath as a guy like Jordan, but he's 100% deserving of it. Both players with Carolina roots, NBA titles, and Hall of Fame careers. Just one small difference. One guy can dunk the ball a little bit better, and the other guy can shoot the ball a lot better. By the way, have you ever heard of the untold story between Stephen Curry and MJ's #1 student, the Black Mamba, Kobe Bryant? If not, you'll want to watch this video right here, where I go over the unique relationship between Curry and Kobe that's not portrayed in the media. It's a deep video, guys, stuff you've never heard before. Click it, watch it, enjoy it, and as always, I'll see you on the other side.